All right. When I was 17, I had this prophecy come to me, and it was like a lot of pieces of information that like kind of all came together into this big story. And the gist of it, well, so in the year 2012, the one timeline that we're all a part of splits into many different timelines, and it turns into two timelines. Like there's like one to many, and then they come back in again to two timelines in the year 2028. And that's the gist of it. There's so many other things about like Elon Musk and the age of Aquarius and the just control over the planet and things like that I could say. I really don't know what I'm gonna say until I'm saying it. I'm just thinking out loud here, but there seem to be two parts of me that come alive. Many different parts of me, but right now I'm struggling with the part of me that believes this and thinks if we don't live our life according to this prophetic information that we magically have access to that no one else knows about, if we don't live our life according to that, we're gonna suffer for like millennia or something. I wonder where that idea came from. I wonder how that got instilled in me. And then the other part of me says, Cassie, you're going to wreck your life if you use magical thinking to and I can't seem to get these two people, these two voices to agree. So here's another story, something I experienced as Cassie Candles is I think it started like 4 years ago. It was like one of the first times I had ever tried edibles, and I tried them. I didn't think they were kicking in, so I tried more. It wasn't a whole lot. It was like, well, maybe, I don't know, 30 milligrams of like sativa edibles, and yeah, I didn't notice much. I was watching some stupid show with my girlfriend at the time, and there was a really dumb joke. It wasn't that funny, but I started laughing uncontrollably, and it all hit at once. I could, but it was weird. I could see my laugh. My laugh was right there in my field of vision, and then there was more. I was laughing at that laughter, and then I was laughing at that one, and then there were so many, and there were like these orange blobs, and the more I would laugh, the more I would see them. They were all around me, and I couldn't see anything. And then I don't know what happened next except that I was crying, and then I was forgetting how to breathe, and then I was standing up and there was vomit on the floor, and my skin was white, and I was marching in place, and there was like a giant castle all around me, and I was floating in space, and all the while my entire body, there's this tingling all up and down it. It's like my entire sense of touch is corrupted. Like, that's probably the most prominent part of this. And Yeah, I'm just having all this tingling all up and down my body, and I'm like in this castle seeing a version of myself dancing, and there's these like godlike entities that I'm interacting with, and I'm like my girlfriend called the EMS, and they came, and they were like, oh yeah, it's just like, too much weed can do this to someone, it's like a panic attack, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And but the tingling stayed. I felt it for the next week approximately. Everything else kind of left. The entities I was interacting with kind of left the castle. All the things I was seeing, like my vision was back. And but yeah, it was a strange thing where, like, anything I'd brush up against, I would feel that touch sensation bouncing, like echoing, reverberating up, like nerve damage almost, without the pain. Weird temperature sensations and stuff, and it went away. I didn't think much of it. I just thought, okay, I'm very sensitive to weed. And I think it was a year later, I was alone on Christmas in my van that I lived in for a while, and that tingling sensation came back without any of the other wild side effects. I had nothing to do. I was just kind of like in my van in a city where I knew nobody, with no responsibilities. I hadn't like started my job or anything like that, and the tingling was just all up and down my body, and I didn't have an explanation for it. I didn't feel scared. I had one friend, a psychic that I would talk to over the phone, Tara, and I asked her, I was like, hey, what is this tingling that I feel? And she's like, oh, let me pull some cards. And I don't quite remember how she answered the question, but I remember she said, Cassie, that's what it feels like when an angel visits your body. Not everyone gets to feel things like that. That's like a gift. That's a magical experience, and that was such a wonderful thing to internalize. Oh my god. I was so lucky. I mean, I didn't need to like do much. I was just kind of like, I go to the library, I walk around, I'm like, wow, I feel the floor tingling all up my legs from every time I take a step. And that's so lucky that I get to feel that, and have this like love and light in my body. Yeah, that feeling that lasted for like 3 days, just all day long, just this tingling, and didn't think much of it. And then it was a year later. I was in Detroit, I think, and someone offered me weed, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll take a hit. And I was kind of anxious about weed from the edible experience, but I was like, well, it's, I'm not taking a bunch of edibles, and I don't know for sure that weed does that to me, but I just need to be careful. And anyways, yeah, I just took one hit, and then in the morning I woke up and my whole body was really tingly, and it seemed to progress. Like, that evening it was worse, the next day it was worse, and then other side effects came along. I couldn't tell where my limbs were unless I was looking directly at them and guiding them with my eyes. And I felt like using my body was really difficult. It was really difficult to figure out where I was moving things. I don't. I went to work. I would try to operate a cash register, and I couldn't tell what I was touching and how I was using my hands. I pressed the buttons, and the buttons would just touch my body all the way up it, and the register would bump against somewhere in my torso, and then my whole torso would just be this like bubbling pop rock, like electric wavy sensation, and it was like I couldn't think straight, and it was also kind of interacting with my synesthesia, and I was just seeing all these colors everywhere, and so I called my friend Tara, and I was like, Tara, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's what it feels like when an angel visits your body, like a higher entity, and that's love, and that's like a gift. And so I got off the phone with Tara, and I reached in to my mind, and I was like, thank you for gracing me with your presence. That's a really special thing I get to experience. Could you please not do this right now, or could you please not make it so I feel like this, or I can't use my body and do my job? And it seems like there was no response, which is strange. Usually when I talk to an entity that I sense in me, there's there's some kind of response, and there was nothing. And I was confused. I started panicking, and it was like just like a little bit more of trying to like interact with that, and then I looked up the symptoms, and it's not like I hadn't looked them up before, but this time with more negative consequences involved, it kind of just hit me harder. Like all the symptoms of this thing that I was experiencing seemed perfectly in line with multiple sclerosis symptoms. The only thing that I didn't really experience was like pain associated with MS. So I was learning about that. It's like a nerve disease that your immune system attacks your nerves when you're under stress, and like exposes them all, and can even cause brain damage, and your body can heal from it kind of temporarily, but yeah, every time I was experiencing one of these episodes, there were new things each time. It was, I don't know, I went to my doctor, I started panicking, and she said that I needed to see a neurologist, but I was like, well, I'm leaving for Oregon so soon, and she's like, yeah, I don't have time to send you to one, and she seemed really concerned, and I was just like, okay, when I get to Oregon, I'll do something about it. And I got here in Oregon, and I was just like, I don't want to think about that. That wasn't real. And so it wasn't real until it happened again. When it happened in Detroit, like before I left for Oregon, it caused me to reconsider the whole way that I think about things. Like, is living in magical reality preventing me from saving myself from harm? Is it putting me in physical danger? If I have multiple sclerosis, a brain disease, and I think that it's just angels visiting my body, I'm hurting myself more than not. And then it also caused me to question all those times that I had met people and told them about, oh my God, yeah, I have this prophecy from when I was 17, and there's all these entities that I interact with and all this stuff, and so many people just don't know how to interact with that, and all of that combined just was such a like big I just was like, this part of me that causes me to think this way is dangerous. I need to block this off. I need to not let myself live in this world. And so I'm in scientific thinking. And so I got to Oregon and I had another one of these experiences, and this one was really bad. I was working my seasonal job at Target and I was just really struggling to do my job and use my body, and I had to touch so many things, and every single time my body would touch anything at all this haptic feedback up and down my skin and all this visual feedback from my synesthesia just blocking my vision, and I'm just in this like all these floating clouds is what it feels like. I'm just this like swirling, bubbling, colorful visualization of what I'm feeling in my body, and I didn't tell anyone really at first except for my doctor. She sent me to a neurologist, and she seemed pretty convinced as well that it was multiple sclerosis. So I saw a neurologist and I got a brain scan, and in that time it did seem likely that I had that, and I started telling people that I might have a nerve disease or brain disease or whatever. And then I got my test results, and the neurologist was like, yeah, you don't have a nerve disease. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, no, there's no scarring that there would be in multiple sclerosis, like wherein your immune system would attack your nerves. There's no evidence of that happening. And he said, my diagnosis is that it's an irregular migraine. Somewhere your brain learned that to process stress in this way, it's like almost like dissociated from a physical experience. I don't know how. He didn't use that many descriptive terms. He called it like a dissociative, irregular migraine, like a dissociative thing. But yeah, it was interesting. He said treat it with migraine medication, and I don't even know why I'm sharing this. It's interesting, and I still haven't figured out how this all fits together. And that's not something I've tried yet, to treat it with migraine medication, but it's wild to me. It's like, I wonder now if that's me keeping a part of me at bay, or is that a part of me that learned when I was younger that like, oh, if we're in danger, because I do think it's stress related, if we're in danger, we have to rip Cassie out of her experience, and we need to dissociate in any way we can. Anyways, recently a lot of crazy stuff has been happening in the US political sphere. Stuff that, like, the kind of stuff that hasn't happened since the last time I was living in this magical world. And it's waking up that part of me in a way that I don't know what to do with. There are two parts of me that are trying to establish residency in my mind, and they don't agree. It almost seems like, what if the prophecy is real, and by living in scientific reality, I'm ignoring a grave threat that I'm in when I should be trying to leave the country. Yeah, my fight or flight was kicked in, and I started making all these plans. I'm gonna leave the country. I'm gonna da 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 da, like immediately. And one second that feels so unfounded, and the next second it feels like, why haven't I been making these plans sooner? It's just where I'm at.